So next speaker is going to be David Cooper, who is going about his Burning Man radio. So David, the mic is yours.
Great, yeah, thank you. Yeah, no worries about running long, Sherry. I'll just cry about it later. So let's jump into this. Yeah, I'm David Cooper. I got these slides, but I haven't really put together a plan, so let's just read through them. It'll go great. For those of you quickly who don't know what Burning Man is, it's an 80,000 person city that appears out of nowhere in the desert in Nevada every year in the US. And like any city, there's an FM radio station with a dedicated studio called Burning Man Information Radio, BMIR for short. Our band is 94.5 FM. Station does not start with a K or a W, but for those of you in broadcasting, just take it what it is. Last year, the event was effectively canceled. So in a short amount of time, we successfully put together a completely decentralized, online-only live stream with 50 DJs. Many of these had like little to no technical experience, some of them in their 60s. And this has inspired an open source project. So I will jump into that. Cool. Quickly about me, I'm staff at Burning Man Information Radio. I don't know what my title is, but I'm just kind of a generalist. I wrote the tech infrastructure for our 2020 stream and also the tech infrastructure for an independent project called Shouting Fire Radio. That is a 365-day-a-year stream that many of the same DJs from Burning Man are broadcasting on, but it's not affiliated with the event. I am a radio personality and a stand-up comedian. I was a software engineer and then an engineering manager in San Francisco for 10 years. I recently quit to try to give this radio and comedy thing a go. I guess me giving a tech talk is me holding on to my previous career. I'm a steel guitar player. I have an annoying cat. I wear glasses. And 20 years ago, I shook hands with the Fonz. I have a picture of it, but I can't find it, so you're just going to have to believe me. Cool. My big claim to fame. Yeah, apologies. These slides are a little bit dense, but cool. So leading up to this year for the 2020 Burning Man stream, I built out 3 other stations. One mentioned Shouting Fire. These stations all emphasize live and pre-recorded programming. And when I say live, I really mean remote live. So no centralized studio, no spot where there's a mixer that DJs come into, completely decentralized, but less of an emphasis on an auto DJ. So mostly live programming and then just kind of a simple DJ, but auto DJ. But there was some need for advertisements and station IDs organized into stop sets, which I'll talk about a little bit later, I think. Some of the problems I ran into was Liquidsoap was always installed inconsistently until we had the Debian packages a few months ago. It was very difficult to get it working consistently. Yeah, it was difficult to reinstall my stuff, to upgrade them. Like the older stations, Shouting Fire in particular, just has code from 2 years ago that I have no idea. I look at it and I think, who the hell wrote this? And then realize it was me. Each station used the previous station's code as a starting point, which had a lot of technical debt. That was hard to manage. And of course, I write Python and I was violating DRY. Don't repeat yourself. The features that caused me to write stuff out of on my own were some common themes that no out-of-the-box solution fit, or if they did, I didn't know how to get it working. So yeah, this real-time stream management was important. Let me change my color to red here. This real-time stream management was important. Our station managers wanted like a kick and ban button in case a DJ was running long or being inappropriate or something like this. This is an interesting one, which I'll get to how I did it. We wanted to hook a Zoom room up to the live stream. So yeah, and we also wanted to support OBS, which I have slides about this later. Really wanted to hammer in the kind of strip blank functionality, where a silent DJ would be treated as if they weren't broadcasting at all. Long format scheduling. So when I say that, I mean 2-hour or more audio files that would play at a specific time. So yeah, I'll talk about that more later. Google Calendar integration. So DJs authorization windows, like the passwords for given DJs, would only work during their Google Calendar events with some entry and exit buffer if the station manager configured it that way. The ability to restart the main script without anyone getting disconnected from the IceCast streams, and then fine-grained permissions. Cool. So then after building these things 4 times, I thought, why not put in the extra work and turn it into a free and open source project? That will be easy, right? I've spent the last 3 months writing this thing, and it is still not yet completely done. Cool. And one thing that I should note is that BMIR, when they're in the desert, they don't use Liquidsoap, except for as part of our redundant archival process. I'm not the one who writes that code. A nice gentleman named Andy does. I think he's here. Thanks, Andy. Let's see here. Yeah, so this motivated the open source project I was talking about. It's called Crazy Arms Radio Backend. I don't have a logo. Those are the best emojis I can come up with. I abstracted my learnings from the stuff I just talked about to a free and open source project. Our goals were to use Docker so that it could be deployed, set up, upgraded in one command on any platform. As long as you can install Docker on the platform, it'll run. It runs on my Mac. It runs on my M1 Mac using AMD 64 container emulation, which is insane to me. I'll explain why later, yeah. And one other goal is that it can be completely self-managed by non-technical users. So the station administrator should never have to enter anything into the terminal. That there should be a UI that's straightforward to use, but it really is just for DJs and station managers. There's no listener UI included. It's backend only, and it leverages Django's admin interface for you Python programmers, so I didn't have to write a ton of code. I just kind of declaratively used Python to describe the UI, and I don't have to worry about list views, detail views. I'm a backend programmer, or at least I used to be. Cool, and then a little bit of ability to customize the Liquidsoap scripts if you want it. I think AzuraCast has a similar functionality where there's kind of breakpoints in the script where you can edit it yourself. Probably won't cover that just because I only have so much time. Cool. This is the flow diagram that I show station managers when I install this stuff. You can think of this section here on the left as the kind of inputs to a fallback. Pre-recorded broadcasts get scheduled over Telnet using asynchronous workers or whatever in the web app. So they kind of take highest priority if they're playing, nothing else can. Then we have live DJ, Zoom Room. The way that I do silence detection and treat an input as if it weren't connected is using script blank. The auto DJ just uses request.dynamic against the web app. And then of course the failsafe that you all know. This is the main Liquidsoap script. And then the way that we have zero listener downtime is the Liquidsoap script just exposes an IceCast output. So it doesn't actually connect to any IceCast servers. And these single scripts connect to that. And when the harbor restarts, those scripts have their own failsafe. So what ends up happening is you hear a little blip, but the main IceCast mount doesn't disconnect. And that's kind of a novel thing that I haven't seen, which allows for hot reloading. If you want to disable or enable a feature, if the station manager wants to do that, they won't have any listeners disconnected. This was pretty important to us during our live stream, just because the Burning Man one for last year, because it was, I think, 80 hours or something, and we had many thousands of listeners, and we certainly didn't want to disconnect them. But if there was something that I needed to fix or change, I wanted the ability to restart. Cool. So yeah, let's go over some of these novel features that I haven't found elsewhere, and just quickly go over their technical approach. So yes, let me see if I have any notes for these slides. I missed a note, but that's okay. So yeah, this is an overview of station management. Station manager shouldn't have to use the terminal. They should be able to add, remove, and lock DJ accounts. Those DJ accounts should be able to perform some actions like programming the auto DJ, scheduling broadcasts. There's, I think, 10 or 15 different permissions that an administrator can do all of them, but individual DJs can do some or none or all. Configuration through a settings page is just using Django's admin. managing the audio assets, so programming the auto DJ, and these pre-recorded broadcasts, which I treat separately. Real-time stream management. So this visualizes what's going on in real time. You see who's connected when, how long they're connected. As soon as they disconnect, the web client gets a push using server sent events, which is like similar to WebSockets. It just was easier for me to use because I'm not a front end. And that uses Nchan for Nginx. But the big features were like a big DJ ban button and a big track skip button. And I think the next slide informs all that stuff. It's a bit blurry, but it's a screenshot of the status page. So what you see here is like the status of the stream. If you remember that diagram from slide, I think 4, was it? Nope, slide 5. If you remember this diagram, these are the 5 things, the 5 sources that were described in that. So you can see that there's a pre-recorded broadcast happening. It's going to be another 17 minutes. It can be skipped from the station admin. What's cool is you can see that a DJ is actually connected to the input harbor. And why this is useful is a DJ may message the station manager saying, "Hey, my show's scheduled. Why isn't it playing?" And the station manager can see what's going on. They can either decide to skip what's currently playing or communicate that to the DJ. The DJ can also come here and they'll see the status page. They just won't be able to ban themselves or skip because they don't have those permissions. But if there was no pre-recorded broadcast, the highest precedence source would be, or the highest priority source would be this live DJ source. And the station manager could ban them, kick them, this kind of stuff. Cool. Let's go over another feature. So I guess this goes a little bit more on the soft side of things, but one feature is what I call idiot-tolerant DJing. We've found that onboarding DJs is always a problem. DJs can't figure out how to use IceCast 2, but it's hard to use. They don't want to pay for audio hijack because they don't have any money. They can't figure out how a USB mixer works. DJs don't disconnect, so IceCast 2 source clients are occasionally left open in silence. Emergencies can be fixed by this kick and ban button I just showed you, but ideally there would be tight scheduling that's described in a later slide where DJs are kicked off when their show's over. And DJs either broadcast silence or come in too hot or cold. For silence, we can use strip link to make that source not be the one that's playing. And for coming in too hot and cold, we can apply compression and normalization. DJs do understand Zoom. So this is something that I haven't seen anywhere else, but especially for this Burning Man stream where we had short notice and non-technical users who wanted to do talk programming and wanted to schedule their talk programming with people who weren't in their homes. The only option is something very complex or Zoom. So we didn't want to preclude less technical people. We want to support live talk programming, and explaining how a mix minus works to someone who doesn't know how computers or mixers works is like a nightmare. I've tried it. It's impossible. And if you're in the UK, you call a mix minus a clean feed. But a killer feature is you can share your desktop audio. So you can have a talk show with remote guests, and you can click the share desktop audio button, and your whole computer's desktop audio will play. If you hear it coming out of your speakers or your headphone, that's what's broadcasting. I don't like Zoom. I'm kind of an open source nerd, but I know that it's really easy for people, and non-technical people understand it. And certainly during the pandemic, they do. Another thing is OBS. I've had DJs I'll tell them, look, IceCast is different than live streaming on Twitch. And they just kind of shrug me off. God, my cat is insane. And they just kind of shrug me off. And then at the last minute, they're like, I only know how to use OBS. I have a few more slides, so let me rush through this. This is the Zoom broadcasting feature. This is what the web UI looks like. Users put in their room link and click start. And on the admin side, there's like a Docker container where there's Zoom running in Docker. I'll explain more about that in the next slide, but this is kind of the user end view, and this is the server end view if you want to administer it. How did I do it? This one is really kind of a janky mishmash of of technologies that I think only could have happened if like Docker existed. I could have done it on a Linux server, but the ability to like reproduce it and deploy it quickly, I think, is a quirk of Docker. So the way it works is the Harbor script, which is what I call the whole Liquidsoap script. I stole the term Harbor, but it's running pulse audio. And in the main fallback, this is basically a simplified version of what you see. It's a strip link on a pulse audio input. Pulse audio is running with always sync, so there's always a recording, always an input device it's like a dummy input device. In a separate Docker container, there's Zoom for Linux running on top of a fake desktop environment using IceWM and XVFB. You can administer that fake desktop using VNC or a web client for VNC. Zoom is started and stopped using a shell script. It uses what you would if you were using a Linux desktop. So it uses XDG open to actually like enter the Zoom room, and it uses XDO tool to like set the mic up and minimize the window so it's not rendering, and then close the Zoom room when you're done. And then the audio from that container is forwarded to the Harbor script using this really simple environment variable. It is like 40 lines of code. I can't believe I got it working. It's for sure going to be brittle. Like the second Zoom releases a new Linux client, it's going to break. But I imagine I'll freeze the Linux client for a long time until it's not working anymore. And then, but yeah, that's how that works. Cool. Another feature is using OBS. This is just using Nginx RTMP, and then uses FMPEG to transcode the RTMP feed from the Nginx RTMP to the regular input Harbor. It's really simple. In the name of not going too over time, I won't describe it more, but you can check out the source there. Cool. This is a cool one. So Google Calendar scheduling. So I found that recurring events are hard. Time zones are hard. Getting station managers on like custom built calendar software is hard. Google Calendar does it somewhat well, and station managers have seemed to know how to use it. So they handle all the scheduling of DJs using Google Calendar, and the way that we associate DJ accounts and their Harbor passwords for IceCast is based on the email address on the Google Calendar event. So that means if a DJ has it in their inbox, and they see it in their Google Calendar, then they're authorized to broadcast. DJs can either be completely restricted to their events, and there's like a status page in this app where you can see those events. And then they're just always authorized. Some DJs we trust to quit at the right time, or maybe every other week there's no show after them, so we let them run long. We trust them, but some DJs we don't trust because they have screwed over other DJs. If you're restricted on a Google Calendar event with your credentials, you might have like 15 minutes grace time, 15 minutes exit time. You see that captured right here. The web app runs in the time zone settings of your account. So when you go to see my shows, it's going to be in the time zone of your choosing. Everything's going to be localized for you. Don't have to worry about station manager trying to figure out what time zones are what. And then little technical implementation here. When a restricted show time is up, the DJ's kicked off. When they try to reauthorize, the web app will reject their credentials on the authorized function in the input Harbor function for Liquidsoap. But the way that we actually execute it is just using server.execute the telnet command. But I imagine in Liquidsoap too, we won't have to do that. Cool. Yeah, this is just an overview of the auto DJ. There's basic functionality. Stop sets are something we support. So those are blocks of advertisements that might be like station ID, ad, PSA, ad, and they might play every 30 minutes. So it's a little bit more professional radio station kind of auto DJ. And then tracks can be sorted into playlists that can support waiting. The DJ's web UI supports like requesting songs next, but it's just a little feature. I don't know if it'll get used. Admins can schedule these long format pre-recorded broadcasts, and these just use the telnet to schedule them at the exact right time. It uses like a Python asynchronous job framework called Hui. Yeah, cool. There's basic anti-repeat code so that tracks and artists don't get repeated a certain number of times. And then bulk uploading via SFTP or command line. But one really cool feature is managers or DJs who want to schedule long shows, they can just put a SoundCloud link in there and we'll automatically download it, potentially transcode it using YouTube DL. Like if it's a YouTube video, it'll extract the audio and not the video. But that's a feature that I know Liquidsoap has. But what is unique about this, or what's novel about this, is it is running in the web app, so that asset is now always stored in your Auto DJ after having been downloaded. Cool. Basically, what's next? You can try it today. When you go to set it up, it's like one command. I think it's just docker compose build and then docker compose up. And when you first log in, you can click a preload button so that it gets completely preloaded with sample data, which is awesome. We're targeting a V1, I guess, or V0.1 for mid-February. If you want to help, we need a logo. I'd also like any code reviews, although the people at my old job who I used to manage have promised to do that for me. What is left is completing the documentation. The web app uses jQuery for all its kind of elements and live stuff, but I want to use something reactive like Alpine, so I'm just kind of in the process of doing that. Freezing all the dependencies, releasing the containers to Docker Hub, better unit testing, the ability to have a test stream, which is something that every station I've worked on has wanted. And then there's also just a running to-do list in the repository. Future releases might have recording of shows, possibly as automatically published podcasts, but we want to be smart about it by picking the start and the end time, kind of when the DJ logs in, but not if they get disconnected, but then their final logout. I don't know if I can write something smart enough to do that. I know that other stations are having DJs cut their own long recordings of their shows manually, so maybe that's the way to go. Then better front end, and then using S3. Thank you to Zerocast, LibreTime. Like a lot of what I've done has been borrowed from them, so thank you. Thank you to Liquidsoap team and you for attending. And then, yeah, links. Check out the stuff. There's me if you want to contact me. There's the two stations that I think are most relevant for this. If you want to listen to my terrible comedy stuff, you can go to that website. I am a Jew, so that's not offensive. Don't recommend it, though. And then that's it. Okay, I did it. Did I run over?
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's an impressive piece of software you made there. So are there questions or comments? So I know you like to type, but you can always
looks like
use your microphone.
Edu, I guess, he asks, for the virtual and fakes X server for audio, is there a problem with latency in the setup? Not really. On a DigitalOcean droplet, that's like the second cheapest one, so the $10 droplet, I've never had a problem. Can I get you to Burning Man next year? I don't even know what's happening this year. But if you do get a chance to come to the radio station, say hi to me. Probably not. I can't get you there. I can barely get myself there.
Yeah.
Hey, David.
Yeah. Buster?
Hey, Zerocast guy here. Hi. Yeah, thank you for your thanks for the mention. Thanks for the heads up on the bug report for Liquidsoap not too long ago on our repository. Yes, there was like a security issue and you shared it with us. So thank you for sharing. Boy, I wish you liked PHP more, because I'd love to see some of this stuff on our project.
I was then certified in 2004.
Hey, so what's up, man?
I haven't written a line of PHP since, but
it's a shame.
I'm trying to get out of being an engineer. I'm like retiring. I walked away from it all to nothing. I'm trying to get into comedy, but I guess, yeah, maybe we should talk. Maybe I could take some of these learnings into a Zerocast.
I do think, well, one of your ideas, the thing about the no downtime restarting, big thing for us. We've been looking into that. So that is a novel approach and definitely
cool. I trademarked it and patented it, so you're going to have to pay me. No, I'm kidding.
I'll see what I can do. I'll have my people call your people. All right. Later.
All right, I'm happy to yield. I know we're running long.
Okay, great. So yeah, maybe it might help with the Zoom thing if we manage to get WebRTC into Liquidsoap, I guess, but this is too complicated. So yeah.
The Zoom thing is like, I hate it, but if you try to get someone who's 60 years old who can barely use a computer to do a talk show on short notice, like and then maybe play some other desktop audio. Like it's the best option I could find.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody hates it, but it's the only software which works. So yeah, that's too bad. Okay, is there any last questions? So if not, thank you very much again. It was really nice.